listening to, you are absolutely listening to the George Espinlove Show, coming to you live from the Funny Farm. Now, with no further ado, here comes Georgie!
Well, hubba, 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 hubba. Yeah, I know. Thank you. Oh, I just love that. That gives me such a warm, fuzzy feeling. It just makes me feel so good. I told you before, when the on-air button lights up and this crowd starts to cheer and carry on the way they do, I just get such a warm, fuzzy feeling down deep inside. I can hardly stand it. But anyhow, you're listening to the George Espinlove Show, coming to you live from the Funny Farm in a place called Our World. Whether you are down the street, around the corner, across this great nation, or around the world, we want you to sit back and enjoy the ride. We never know where things are going to lead us. We just go. And tonight, without exception, we're going to have another very interesting guest. All of our guests are very interesting, right? Yeah. That's my cheering crowd. Well, they love to cheer. I told you they cheer about anything. We have a guest tonight that, and I'll share with you in a little bit. He has a resume that is beyond words. So we're going to bring him on. His name is Jeff Rasley. He's an adventurer and an author. And I'll leave it at that, and he can explain the rest of us. Jeff, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, George. Glad to be with you.
It's good to have you. I told the audience that your resume is just beyond words because I can't find the words for it. I've looked down and I've read it, I don't know, at least 6 or 7 times throughout the day. Excuse me, and I just shake my head. And I tell people such as you have done more in less than one lifetime than I could ever do in 6.
Well, I don't know about that, but at an early age, I decided that life should be an adventure, and so I set out to try to experience as much of the world as I could and accomplish a few things along the way. So it's added up to a good life.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, before we went on the air, I have to share this with you. I told Jeff that I was talking to someone this afternoon, and I said, this man, I mean, his resume is it's just too much. And I said, he has done everything. I said, there's everything in his resume except being a bricklayer. And then when Jeff and I was talking, Jeff said that he was a bricklayer at one time or involved in that trade. So, I mean, everything's in there. Jeff, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I wasn't a bricklayer for very long, but I did work a lot of jobs when I was young. My parents were of the mind that if you wanted to have money, you had to go out and earn it. So started working jobs at a young age and did everything from laying bricks to gas station doing auto mechanics, and somehow managed to also make it through college and sort of wandered around a bit as a nomadic student for a while, went to several different colleges, but found myself at the University of Chicago eventually and really fell in love with learning there. So managed to graduate Phi Beta Kappa and did pretty well, and played on the football team and on the swimming team as well. And then after a little time off working for Aetna Insurance Company, I went on to law school, graduated from law school, and got into what we back then we called poverty law and social justice, and worked for an organization called Legal Services Organization that represented poor folks and also brought class action type lawsuits to where we saw injustice. And after doing that for a few years, I started feeling jealous of my classmates who'd all gone off to the big firms and were getting rich. And so I gave in to greed and went to work for a big corporate law firm for a few years, and then broke off with my two best friends in the firm, and we started our own firm, and that prospered. And along the way, my wife and I, who married as college kids, had a couple boys, raised the boys, coached a lot of sports while they were growing up, and all the while was able to slake my love for adventure travel, and have managed to visit over 40 countries and 48 states, and have had some wonderful adventures climbing mountains in the Himalayas and doing some kayaking expeditions in the South Pacific. So there you have it in a nutshell.
You did I read where you did solo kayaking around several islands in that area?
Yeah, I've 3 times done a solo kayak expedition in the islands of Palau, which is one of the most beautiful places in the world. The scuba diving and snorkeling is absolutely gorgeous, but the wonderful thing about kayaking there is you can paddle from one island to another, camp out on the islands. You can see the next island, so you're, if at least if you're careful, you're not out lost on the open sea. Although I managed to do that once, and it's terrific scuba diving and paddling. And then I've done a couple group expeditions in Greek Isles and Caribbean as well.
It also says that you were all academic, all state football team.
That's true. At the University of Chicago, which is a interesting history in itself, because the University of Chicago dropped football back in 1939 after having been the dominant team in the Big Ten, coached by a guy named Amos Alonzo Stagg, who was the most winning coach in American football history until eventually Bear Bryant beat his record in the late 1980s. But then there was no football at Chicago for 30 years. Started up again in 1969. I played in the mid-70s when the team was still struggling to reestablish a program. People magazine in 1974 called us the worst team in college ball. They didn't even limit it to worst team in college football. They said the worst team in college ball. We had managed to win one game in 3 seasons, And but our coach, a guy who spent years, really decades, trying to bring football back, was a beautiful, wonderful elderly fella. Really, the only kind of coach I would have submitted myself to at that point in life. And his last game that he coached was my last game my senior year, and we managed to beat Marquette University, and the fans tore our old goalpost down, and we had quite a party afterwards. And so we went out with a win, although it took 3 years.
That's persistence.
That's persistence.
Yeah.
We were compared to Hector going out to fight Achilles every week. We knew we were going to get our asses whipped, but we kept doing it.
But you win anyhow, you know.
Yeah.
Did you write a book about the return of football to the college?
I did. It's called The Monsters of the Midway, The Death, Resurrection, and Redemption of Chicago Football. And it was a lot of fun writing.
Yeah, that ought to be very interesting. You wrote, how many books have you written?
I've written 6.
Wow. Let's see, I see some here, Islands in My Dreams, Nepal Himalayas, In the Moment, False Prophet, Bringing Progress to Paradise, then the book that you just mentioned. If you don't mind, what is False Prophet about?
Well, that is classified as a legal thriller, political mystery, and it's based on a case I had a long time ago. So the sort of the heart of the book is true in the sense that it's based on a real case, but I've fictionalized the characters in it and then made the case turn out the way I wanted it to turn out instead of how it actually turned out, because the good guys were on the losing side in reality, and since it's fiction, and I was the author instead of God, I got to make it turn out right. But the two main characters are a young idealistic lawyer and an elderly African American preacher in the inner city, and it takes place in Indianapolis. And the preacher has had a vision from God to build a tabernacle in this bad inner city ghetto area of Indianapolis, and has devoted his life to doing that. And unfortunately, just as he's about to have bought all the properties he needs, which has taken him over 20 years to do, the government decides they're going to come in and rehabilitate this neighborhood. But a politician, a devious politician and developer, at first are the only ones that know this is going to happen. So they go around and buy up properties under false names and fake companies. And the Reverend is in the middle of that area. So they've got to get him to sell out and move out to complete their plan for dominating this area, this real estate market. And so it leads to kidnapping, murder, and so forth.
And it all came out good in the end.
It all comes out good in the end.
I like that. You know, I had a guest on, excuse me, I think it was a week ago tonight, lady by the name of, and you might know of her or heard of her, Karna Small Bodman, who was at one time, she was the senior director of the National Security Council under President Reagan.
Okay.
And she is a writer, and she took a lot of things that she experienced while spending 6 years in the White House, uh, working for the president. She took a lot of factual things and she builds fictional political thrillers.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
she intertwines the facts with the fiction. Uh, when you mentioned that's pretty neat the way that people can do that. Did you come from a writing family?
Yeah, my mom was a journalist, and when I was a kid, she, like most women of her generation, didn't think if they could afford it, didn't think they should work. So she only did some freelance writing when I was growing up. But when my brother went off to college and I was senior year in high school, she finally felt like she could go back to work and do what she loved, and she rose up from being a reporter to eventually becoming city editor of our hometown newspaper. Now, she had a little bit of an in because her stepfather had been the editor-in-chief of the newspaper. So I grew up with two generations of journalists and then managed to marry an English major, and my wife became an English professor, and she's been a writer longer than I have. She published her first novel when she was just 21 and has published, I think it's up to 15 books now, most of them historical novels, and a couple books about writing for writers.
Oh my! I have to ask you this. How about your sons? Do they write?
But my sons have fled from the law. Lawyers always think their kids ought to grow up to be lawyers, but they heard me bitch about it too much. So, but the younger son is sort of a writer. He majored in film studies in school, and he just graduated from college last year, and is now working for a documentary film company. And his sort of long-term dream is to become a screenwriter and write movies. The other one, no. The other one is a military man. He's joined the National Guard last year and is just about to go off to officer candidate school and then become a full-time Army man.
All right. And the next time you see him or talk to him, please tell him I thank him for his service.
I'll be happy to do that. He has taken after, I guess, the military skipped a generation. Both my wife's family and my family had most every generation served. My dad was in both World War II and Korea, and her dad was in Korea. But I came of age during the Vietnam era at the very end of it, and was in that 3-year period where they had the draft lottery. And I luckily got a high number, so I didn't get drafted, and I believed the Vietnam War was a terrible mistake, so I wasn't going to volunteer for it. But I had grown up just expecting to go into the military because everybody in my family always had. But Vietnam changed that along with a lot of other things.
Well, you sure didn't miss anything. Trust me. You're still practicing law today?
No, I left the law in '09, so I've been away from the law for almost 3 years now, and have devoted my work hours to writing and running philanthropy foundation, which is based here in the U.S. but works in with a little village in the Nepal Himalayas, and I serve on several nonprofit boards. So I'm trying to make up for all those sins as a lawyer for 30 years. Got a lot of time in purgatory to serve for that.
Oh, I don't know if you'll ever get out.
Oh, thanks a lot, George.
I always try to help a man out. You know what I mean? I took, and ladies and gentlemen, listen. There's a very interesting website. It is Jeffrey. Do you say your last name Rasley?
Long A, Rasley.
Rasley. JeffreyRasley.com. Jeffrey Rasley, that's RASLEY.com. What I did today was I took some information off of Smash Mouth, I'll get it right, about your bio, and then I went to, what is it, welcome to, is it Beza?
Bassa.
Welcome to Bassa Village, that video, and I put it up on our radio news page. That was really, really neat. I liked that.
Oh, thank you. That's great. I'm glad you got to see that and share it.
If people go to Jeffrey Rasley, RASLEY.com, ladies and gentlemen, there is it's pretty neat. There's all about the Beza. Am I saying it right, or is Bassa?
Bassa Village.
Having a senior moment. Bassa Village project. It's about then there's some things about Monsters of the Midway that Jeff had mentioned, and some other things there. But then he's got these Bassa Mara Peak 2011, and he's got a whole. I mean, it is just there's pictures, and he gives you play-by-play of what went on. Jeff, tell me something. I've never climbed a mountain. What is it like when you go into the Himalayas?
Well, the first experience that's memorable and in some ways both disturbing and beautiful is landing in Kathmandu, because Kathmandu, it's become a big city, over 1 million residents, but it's so different from the United States, what we're used to, and it's kind of a culture shock just driving through the streets of Kathmandu to get to your hotel, wherever you're going to stay. It's so colorful. The women dress in beautiful saris, and there's almost no traffic regulation, so it's this squalor and noise and animals walking out in the middle of the street, because it's primarily a Hindu country. So cattle just walk out in the street, and dogs lay around, and the poverty is extreme, and so you see beggars and lepers, and so it's pretty wild. But then when you either drive up or fly a little puddle jumper up into the mountains, the scenery is spectacular. In the Himalayas, the highest mountains in the world, and the majestic beauty is just awe-inspiring. And then the work starts, because you have to spend a week or two acclimatizing to the higher altitude. So you start trekking at a relatively low altitude, meaning usually somewhere between 5,000 and 7,000 feet, and working your way up to higher and higher altitudes until you set up a base camp, and then you figure out, of course with the help of a professional guide, how you're going to try to reach the summit, and you have a route plan, and at that point you do what the guide tells you to in terms of when the climb starts and how far you're going to go, and setting up high camp and so forth. But it's hard physical work because, especially lowlanders like me in Indianapolis, I live at sea level. Just being up in high altitude is a chore because your lungs and your brain are getting so much less oxygen. Everything is harder. And then, most of us who are fit and devoted athletes might spend an hour, maybe 2 hours a day working out. But on a trek, you're typically walking from 4 to 10 hours. And when you start climbing, you're typically climbing for 10 to 12 hours. So it's very physically demanding, just more so than your body is used to. But you're surrounded by this incredible beauty. So, you stop and take photos and enjoy the scenery and hang out with your climbing team members and your local guide and porters who it has a real family feeling because you're all working together to achieve this goal. So the community of the team and the staff who are the cook, the guide, the porters, it's a delightful sort of moving little community that hopefully gets you to the top of the mountain, but much more importantly, safely back down.
You mentioned cook? You have your base camp. That's the bottom level, right?
Yeah. The way it works is you're trekking along each day. You have a cook, a professional cook that's part of the staff, and the cook will make 3 meals a day as you're trekking along, and he sets up a kitchen tent, and he has kitchen boys who work with him, and they bring pots and pans and cooking materials and food, and they buy fresh food along the way from the villages, and we're fed very well. The food is really good. The cooks know how to cook to the Western palate, and they're trained professionally. And the Nepali people who work in the trekking industry were originally trained by the Brits because the Himalayan climbing tradition goes back to the Brits and also other European countries, but in Nepal mostly the British. And the British explorers were, aristocratic sort of guys who wanted to go out and tally-ho, have a great adventure, but for God's sakes, they didn't do things like cook for themselves. So they brought along their own cooks, and they hired local people to be the porters to carry all the heavy stuff because, for God's sakes, they didn't want to, put heavy materials on their aristocratic shoulders. And so, but eventually, so they trained the local folks on how to be cooks, porters, guides, and the trekking industry in Nepal flourished, became the second largest industry in Nepal after agriculture because one thing it has very little natural resources. But one thing it has is 8 of the 10 highest mountains in the world and hundreds of other beautiful mountains to climb and trek around. So,
how long does it take to reach the summit?
It depends on the mountain. For the climbs that I do, which are not the most extreme climbs like Mount Everest, the climbs I do, the peaks are usually between 18 and 22,000 feet high, and most of them you can do you set up base camp and you can get up to the peak and back to base camp in either 1 or 2 days. So it's either leave base camp, get back within 24 hours, or go up, set up a high camp, then climb after the high camp is set up. The next day, back to base camp, so 48 hours. Now, the extreme climbs like Mount Everest will take, once their base camp is set up, they'll take 2, even 3 weeks to get from base camp to the summit and back.
Wow. How did you how'd you get hooked up or come upon this Baza village?
Well, when I started going to Nepal back in 1995 was the first year I went, and I'm going to back up just a little bit, and then I'll come back to Bassa. I had turned 40, and my wife tells me I was manifesting midlife crisis symptoms. I already had a Harley motorcycle and a sports car convertible, and so instead of running off with my secretary, which I couldn't do because she was older than me, my wife one day slapped down in front of me a brochure about trekking in the Himalayas and said, "Why don't you go do this?" So she's basically saying, go take a hike on the other side of the world.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So I did. So a friend and I went over, trekked to Mount Everest, and it was just so beautiful. And I really loved the people that live up in the high Himalayas. Sir Edmund Hillary has described them as the strongest and kindest people in the world. And I had the same reaction. So I started going back every year and went from being a trekker to a climber, and eventually started organizing my own expeditions. And along the way, I started working with this one company called Adventure GeoTreks, and I'm still their U.S. representative. But the company was owned by a guy named Niru Rai. And Niru and I got to be very good friends over organizing these expeditions together. And he told me about his little home village where he grew up. And most of the people that he hired to serve as guides, cooks, porters, came from Bassa Village, his hometown. So I got to kind of feel like I knew this village, although I'd never been there. And he told me in 2007, after having done a couple expeditions with his company, that the little village had a school that had 3 grades, and they wanted to add a 4th and a 5th grade. And he asked if I could help raise $5,000 for the school, which would pay for the materials to help build an addition, would pay the salaries of 2 teachers for 3 years, and some materials and benches for the kids. And that if I could raise that money, the villagers would provide all the labor themselves, so that the money would go directly to the cost of the materials and the teacher salaries. And I said I'd give it a try, and so I did a fundraising campaign, and it was successful. And then Niru and I thought it would be a neat idea if we invited any of the donors that wanted to go on a trek to Bassa Village. And only 2 groups of what they call white people had ever been to Bassa Village before. It's in a remote area. It's not on a trekking trail that tourists use. So the only people that had been there before were 2 groups who had come to help originally build the school. And so we did, and our little group was the 3rd group to visit Bassa. And it was an incredible experience. When we got to the village, the entire village, 250 men, women, children, were waiting for us with flowers. And we were showered and covered in flowers, and the villagers danced and sung for us, and I've been back each year since then, and we're treated the same way every year when we come. And so that's how my relationship with the village started, and we went on to develop a foundation to continue working with the village, and we've provided money for the villagers to build their own little hydroelectric system, so they have electricity now, and stoves, because they cook and do all their heating on an open fire pit in the middle of the house. So lung problems, cataract problems, are rampant, just inhaling and being around smoke all the time. So they now have, like the old pot-bellied stoves, with not a chimney, but a pipe to pipe the smoke out of the homes. And we bought some computers for the school so the kids can learn how to use computers and modern educational materials. And we just finished a fundraiser to develop a water delivery system, because the way they get their water is they walk half an hour to the stream with a bucket, fill the bucket, that's their water for the day, do it again the next day, and now we're going to have them build a piping and cistern system from the stream to the village, so they'll have water there in the village.
That's amazing. People such as we take so many things for granted here in our country. I imagine it gives you that real warm, fuzzy feeling inside when you get involved with folks like this.
Yeah, it does, George. And what's been so wonderful about it is these folks are so grateful, and it's one village where I've been able to go back, see the fruits of our fundraising, but Nero and I originally agreed on a few principles that we would follow, which were that the villagers would have to provide all the labor. All we would provide was the capital to purchase materials that they didn't have, and to provide expertise like engineers that the village didn't have to direct building projects. But the villagers would do the work, and then they would own the project. So they set up a school board to run the school. They have a committee to run the hydroelectric project. They'll have a committee to run the water project, and so it's theirs. It's not, it's not something owned and run by outsiders, which the villagers have no investment in it. They build it, they run it, they own it, and we think that's the right way to do that kind of development work.
When I was watching the video, excuse me, was that this year, 2012?
That was 2011. 2011.
When you were going down the line, when you would come to the village, you'd bend over and people would put that ring of flowers around your neck. I didn't realize until as you moved down the line that line was long. Then I thought, how's all these flowers going to fit around somebody's neck? It'll be coming up over their head. And I'm on the website now, where there's so many flowers that I guess that's you, right? Standing there. I mean, it does. It literally goes up to a little above your ears. I mean, and they're so colorful, and I just couldn't get over how colorful it was, and how many people, and you could tell they were excited. Uh, they were genuine. There was no plastic people. What you saw was what was real. They were just elated that you were there.
Yeah, exactly. Again, the strongest and kindest people I know. Um, the gratitude is genuine, and they know that without our money, they wouldn't be able to have these things that they've discovered are out there, and they would like to improve their standard of living and improve their health and improve the education for their children. Just to sort of give you a sense of the values of these folks, um, there was a school which is an hour walks away from them, and the kids that were late grade school age would go to the school, and they could graduate from high school there, but there was no elementary school. And so the village decided as a community that they wanted their own school for their kids, because they realized that the tillable land that they can grow on is not expanding, and the downside of having a medical clinic an hour's walk away was that with better health care, they were having more live births, because it used to be 3 out of 4 children would die in childbirth, and now it had become that 3 out of 4 would live. So they had this population explosion, and they realized that some of their kids were going to have to leave the village, and without any education, it would be a rough go. So that's why they wanted a school, is to help their kids. And they had no idea of what electricity was until a village across this huge valley that they live in got electricity, and they saw the lights twinkling at night. And they were curious about what that was, and so then they went to visit, and they saw what light bulbs were, and it occurred to them that if they could have light at night, that their kids could read books at night and wouldn't be just limited to daylight, and they wouldn't have to take the risk of burning fires and so forth. And also that it would be easier to walk around the village at night and visit each other. So they wanted electricity. And the values of these folks are family, taking care of their kids, trying to provide for their kids, and the community. And their sense of self is much more as a member of a community as opposed to an individual. We're so individualistic oriented, we tend to think of ourselves first, and our family second, and our community third. And them, they think of family first, community second, and self third. And that's just the way they are. They have their own religion. They're not Hindus or Buddhists, which are the two biggest religions in Nepal. And in their religion, they believe that everything has God's spirit in it. And so everything, whether it's living or inanimate, should be respected because it's part of God. So they have this tremendous environmental respect. So generations ago, they realized that their only fuel was wood. But so they didn't cut down the trees. They have a little forest near the village, which they've tended instead of deforesting it like many less developed countries have. They've tended their little forest, and they just cut branches, and they've replanted, and so this forest continues to this day. even though they think their village has been there for about 500 years. They don't really know because they don't have a written language. It's all oral tradition. But this respect they have is so extreme that if you're walking down a trail and there's a rock in the middle of the trail, you or I would just kick it aside. They wouldn't kick that rock because that would be disrespectful. They'll move it aside or they'll walk around it.
You know, I know it's impossible to do, but I know a whole bunch of people I'd like to take to a place like that, and in the first place, not allow them to speak at all, just observe, because there's a lot of people that could learn from these people. We get to thinking that we're pretty intelligent and we're this and we're that, and like the rooster, the rooster thinks the sun comes up because he crows. These people could teach us Americans a whole lot of things just about plain everyday common sense and good living, don't you think?
Well, I do, and I've tried to convey that in the books that I've written about my experiences in Nepal and specifically with Bassa Village, because when I first went there, it's like going back in time, hundreds of years. No running water, no electricity. They don't have any vehicles with wheels. They don't have wheelbarrows or carts because it's the terrain is too rugged. No motors of any kind, and so so they lack all of these things that we take for granted, and the wonders of modern technology. So what do they do? How do they spend their time with no radio, no telephones, no TVs? Well, they get together and they enjoy each other's company. And so, of course, it's developed very, very close bonds within the community. And they like to sing and dance. They like to drink. It's like the moonshiners. Every family has its own still. And they make art out of flowers, even though land is so valuable because of the rocky terrain. Every home has a flower garden, and so they make art out of flowers. They make the leis that they hung around our necks, but they also make little medallions and figurines and so forth. And so we have unlearned so much of what they take for granted. They take it for granted that people should be kind to strangers and they're not suspicious of other people, and they have warm, loving relationships because people are what's most important. Whereas with us, we're in our nice, comfortable homes with security systems and locks on the door, watching our TV or on the internet or Skyping or whatever, and a stranger knocks on our door. What's our reaction?
Yeah.
Your suspicion, it's not positive.
You've got the first two numbers, 9-1, already dialed. You just got to hit the other one.
Yep. Whereas with them, the reaction is, come in. Can I give you food? Can I give you drink? Would you like to stay here?
That's amazing. When I was watching that video, I enjoyed their dances and their musicians, their band or whatever they call it. And that was pretty neat stuff.
Yeah, and all those instruments are all handmade. I mean, you could tell by seeing them and hearing them, they're not manufactured, because the only thing that's manufactured that they've had in the village is some of the men's clothing, because many of the men work for the trekking company, for Adventure Geo Treks, and we have a tradition that at the end of the trek, we give away most of our clothing and things we don't need. So over the years, the men have accumulated Western clothing and flashlights, that sort of thing, from trekkers that they have served. It's part of their tip. Mm-hmm. But other than that, when I first went there, other than the school, the village was probably no different than it had been 500 years ago.
And those dances, I imagine they're handed down from generation to generation too.
Right, exactly. It's the dances, the songs, all of the traditions are handed down orally from one generation to the next.
And you said they have no written language.
That's right.
Are they learning in school? I mean, how are they doing that? Are they learning to write somehow?
Yeah. In every school in Nepal, it's required that the school teach the national language, which is Nepali, which is a written language, and also English. So all the kids learn Nepali, and they learn to read and write and speak Nepali, and they learn to read, write, and speak English.
Let me give the folks this website again, because you could spend a lot of time traveling around on this website. It is Jeffrey Rasley, RASLEY.com. And you have so many goodies on here about your books, about your previous expeditions, and like the one we was just talking about. I clicked on that, and it's like reading play by play of what took place, when, where, how, the conditions here, the conditions there, the people here, the people there. I mean, that's just fantastic, and I imagine the rest of those links are much of the same, right?
Right. Each link of the expeditions is one expedition per year, and I describe what occurred, what it's like trekking day to day, and what we experienced, and then there are pictures within the narrative, and then there's, for each one, a link to a picture album for anyone who wants to see more pictures, and then there's a link to the foundation website for anyone who would be interested in getting involved in helping the foundation, and there's a link to Adventure Geo Treks for anyone who would be interested on going on a trek in the Himalayas. There's that information, and then there's the information about the books I've written.
Yeah, there's a ton of information there, Jeff, and it's all good and exciting. Wow, that it's just I don't know. It's as exciting as reading your resume and all the things that you've done. I tip my hat to you. I really do. It just doesn't seem fair or right. It's like, and I tell a lot of our guests this. It's like a little kid sitting at the feet of an adult, listening to them tell their experiences, and you sit there and you close your eyes and you can see things happening. But in this case, we can just click on the screen and see the pictures and read the account. There's just so much. You live a very exciting life, my friend.
Well, thank you. Like I said at the beginning, when I was young, I grew up in a small town, and it seemed very closed in and narrow, and something sparked curiosity in me about what the greater world was like. And so when I was 18 and out of high school, I walked to the edge of town and stuck my thumb out and hitchhiked across the country, and I've been trying to live like life as an adventure ever since.
You know, for young people, and there, we have people literally down the street, around the corner, across the nation, and around the world that listens to our show. What for young people that have that fear of stepping out, or they want to dream. I think there's a lot of kids now, they want to dream, but they don't know what to dream about. Uh, did you have any inner fears of stepping out or venturing off somewhere? I mean, just what were some of your emotions that you went through as you were sticking your thumb out and going somewhere?
Well, when I first started, my primary emotion was a sense of excitement and curiosity. Now, I ran into some people along the way that caused me to be fearful, like getting into a car and see the guy with his hand under the seat and his hand is gripping a 45. But turns out he was just checking me out. Turned out to be a very friendly guy. But yeah, when you step out of that comfort zone, fear is part of the experience. But if you never step out of that comfort zone to face your own fears, how much of a life are you leading? And, you don't have to climb a mountain or kayak or cross an ocean by yourself or hitchhike across the country to live an adventuresome life. And one of the wonders of technology is that, you can sit at your computer and experience the world that way. I'd rather touch it, feel it, but even using the technology to get out of your comfort zone and see the world is something. And the other thing it does is, I think it helps to create a sense of connectedness with the rest of the world. One of our problems as a nation that this election showed so clearly is how divided we are. And why are we so divided? Why is one group fearful of another? Well, why do we have these divisions where we can't reach across the political parties and reach across ethnic and racial groups and take the other's hand and understand this is a human being just like me. We all want pretty much the same things. Like those Bassa villagers, they want a good life for their children. They want to improve their lives somewhat. We all want that.
We here in this country, and I always tell people, throw the shingle above your head or wherever you wear that thing. Throw that thing away. I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat, Independent, Libertarian, whatever you go by. Throw that thing away, because above all, first and above all, we're Americans, and we're all in this boat together. Whether we like it or whether we don't, we are all in the boat together. And watching those people on the video and listening to you explain their values, we could learn so much from those people. I think we're hard headed. They seem much more intelligent than we are, just by watching them. But our young people, don't be afraid to do something. And don't listen to someone else tell you that you can't. You can. You can. Here is a man that has. You did the Nike commercial before there ever was a Nike commercial. You just did it.
Yeah, it's a good saying. Just do it.
It's amazing.
All it does is cause you to go to the store and buy running shoes. Maybe that's not good, but if you put those shoes on and start running out into the world, that's a good thing.
That's right. That's right. Jeff, You are a very interesting man, and I thank you. I thank you. That website again is Jeffrey Rasley, RASLEY.com. Go there, spend some time there. You'll be glad that you did. Is there anything you want to add before we go?
Well, I think you really said it quite well. The message that I've tried to get across in the books that I've written about Bossa Village and even my fiction books about a football team and a lawyer working for an African-American preacher in the ghetto. Ultimately, it's all about community, and we are in this boat together. And if we recognize that, and we recognize that we're all part of God's great plan and part of humanity, we can row that boat together instead of fighting and eventually sinking it.
Yeah, hitting each other in the head with the oars.
Yeah.
Doing much damage to the brain housing group. Where can folks get your books at?
Well, if you go to the website, each book is listed there, and it has a link that it can be purchased through Amazon. The first book, Bringing Progress to Paradise, can be purchased in any bookstore. The others are digital books, so they have to be purchased through Amazon or one of the other digital reader systems. But just go to the website and click on the book, and you'll be able to find a link to it.
Have anything in the works right now?
Yeah, I am. I started another book. It's about the narrative is about a pilgrimage I did to Wounded Knee. I had an ancestor who was the only cavalryman killed in the massacre at Wounded Knee, which killed about 300 Indians, mostly women and children. And my mother wrote a story for our newspaper years ago about that, and it sort of intrigued me and hung there in the back of my mind. And the last motorcycle trip I did was to go out to Sturgis for Bike Week, and found myself feeling rather alienated from this great bacchanalia, and got inspired to instead go to Wounded Knee and in some sense make a pilgrimage to the place where my ancestor died and who participated in this massacre. And so the book is about the history of Wounded Knee, how that happened, and my own meditations on that.
Well, that'll be very, very interesting. Wow. I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us and to just what is it? We didn't even what is it? This is just the tip of the iceberg. I don't even know if we touched the tip of everything. But if folks will go to jeffreyrasley.com, you can drill down into some of this stuff and find out where he's been, what he's done, how he's done it, and all those other good things, because it sure is exciting. Jeff, give our regards and our thanks to your son and to your other son and to your wife. I just trust that everything you put your hand to will blossom and bloom. Keep on keeping on, and let's stay in touch, and we'll get you to come back again if you would.
I'd love to. It's been my great privilege to share this hour with you, George. I really appreciate it.
It's been our privilege. Thank you so very, very much, Jeff, and God just bless you real good.
Bless you, my friend.
Thank you. And there, my friends, is a very interesting man. Whew. My goodness gracious sakes alive. Let me catch my breath. That's what I said. Charlie, let me catch my breath. Thank you, Charlie. Charlie's a little slow sometimes on the board over there. Thank you, Charlie. I like this. This is pretty.
Spider in my web. What you trying to do? You treat me so unkind. Treat me like a fool. You're a spider in my web. A spider in my web. Wearing your disguise, running round the town, telling all your lies. You're a spider in my web. A spider in my web. What you trying to do? You treat me so unkind. Treat me like a fool. You're a spider in my web. A spider in my web. Spider in my web.
I don't know about you, but I really like that. I'll be back in about 30 seconds.
Oh man, you're crooked as an old oak tree. Bend over double with a crick in your knee. You're gone crazy.
Too Bad Henry by Maria Danes. Hey, listen, we want to thank our friends down there at musicalley.com. That's musicalley.com. Do yourself a favor. If you're a broadcaster, listen to me. If you're a broadcaster, go to musicalley.com. If you're not a broadcaster, if you just like listening to music, go to musicalley.com. But what I'm saying is if you're a broadcaster, you can go and you can sign up under the producer dooflicky they have there, and then you can use their music on your show. Then you go back and tell them when you used it, what show it was, blah 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 blah, and they contact the artist, and then many times the artist will contact you. It puts you in excuse me, puts you in contact with the artist. And if perhaps you'd like to have them come on the show or whatever. But thanks to our friends at musicalley.com, go down there and pay them a visit. You don't even have to get out of your chair to go there. Just a click of the mouse. I want to say thank you one more time to Jeff Rasley. That's Rasley. Go to Jeffrey Rasley, Rasley.com. He has one fantastic website there, pictures, videos, the written accounts, so on and so forth, all about his books, and there's links to where you can get it, either in digital form or hard copies. There's blogs and interviews and reviews and engagement for classes, programs, and interviews. It's just a wealth of information. So go to jeffreyrasley.com. And I thank you, Jeff, for taking the time out of your busy schedule and being with us tonight. That was very, very interesting. We have some fantastic guests, don't we? All of our guests are fantastic. We had a lady on the show, I guess about 6 or 7 weeks ago. I don't know, back then, by the name of Cheryl Shaw Barnes. Many of you will remember her. Her husband, Peter Barnes, is a correspondent for CNN News, and together, Peter and Cheryl does these children's books. You remember I was talking about them? LittlePatriotPress.com. Go there. She sent me 5 of those books. I got them today. It came. They are the most interesting. They are the most beautiful. They are colorful. I mean, it is just wonderful. And she uses the mice as the characters in these things, and it's for children to learn about how our government functions and what they do and how they do it, and how the voting process takes place, and how the Declaration of Independence was brought about. So, and each one of them is a separate book. For instance, Woodrow for President. It's a tale of voting, campaigns, and elections. And I mean, it is colorful. It's not only for kids. Trust me. The night that she was on, I remember I was looking at different things on her website before and during and after the show, and I thought, man, this is good for a lot of adults. But there's one about campaigns and elections and voting. Then there's one about the Woodrow, the White House mouse. That's pretty self-explanatory. The graphics in it are beautiful, and Cheryl does those herself. Then there's Liberty Lee's Tale of Independence. It talks about the Declaration of Independence. And these are nice-sized books, and they are very, very beautiful. Then you have House Mouse, Senate Mouse, the Speaker of the House, and the Senate Majority Leader, how our laws are made. It talks about the Capitol, and you can read about the characters in here and look at all the graphics and so on and so forth. And then there's one about Marshall, the Courthouse Mouse. A Tale of the U.S. Supreme Court. And the drawings in here are actual drawings that's taken from the Supreme Court. They just do a wonderful job. Do yourself a favor. Listen to me. Go to littlepatriotpress.com. littlepatriotpress.com. And these would make beautiful Christmas presents. And you could read them to your young people. You could mention it to a teacher. Let me reach over here. You could mention it to the kids' teachers. Go to your local library and find out if they have it. If they don't, put them in touch with Peter and Cheryl. Just go to littlepatriotpress.com, and all the information is there. And so, Cheryl, Peter, I thank you very, very much. That is just one beautiful gift, and I thank you very, very much for it. I've got a whole bunch of grandkids. Some of them are a couple of them's in their 20s, and then I've got them from almost 23 down to 1. So we're going to put these things to work. Pop-Up's going to be reading a lot of books about the government in a way that young people and even me can understand. So thank you so very, very much, Cheryl. I appreciate that. What else is there? I want to give a big shout out to Lillian Caldwell, who is over there at PWR Talk. She is the founder and the CEO of that internet radio network, and she does a fine job over there, and she is a very talented lady and a very, very nice lady. Every time that I have asked her for advice or some information, she has always been so pleasant to help me along the way and to tell me exactly what I needed, and I thank her for that. Tomorrow night, let me make sure. Tomorrow night, some of you older folks like me have no doubt heard of a fellow by the name of Will Rogers. Do you remember Will Rogers? Well, he was a humorist. He was a columnist, and so on and so forth. Well, the modern day Will Rogers is a man by the name of Will Roberts. But look, he can rope like Will Rogers did. He makes fun of the politicians. He does all those things that Will Rogers used to do. He's going to be with us tomorrow night on the show. So tune in for Will Roberts. I make a big mistake, and I'm sure there are a lot of other people do when they introduce him. You want to introduce him as Will Rogers instead of Will Roberts. But he wears the cowboy hat and he does a rope trick, in front of people, and of course, you're not going to be able to see that tomorrow night on the radio. You know what I mean? But you think that's very, very funny, don't you? Okay. But Will Roberts will be with us tomorrow night, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, right here on the Spreaker Network. So tune in. It'll be a delight. He's funny. It'll just be very, very interesting, and you can follow him on the web. All right, that took care of all that stuff. Where are we at? What, Charlie? Oh, really? You think? Okay. All right. Okay.
Kick off the evening with a show that begins at 7 Central Time, immediately followed by another show of a similar theme at 8:30, 7:30 Central Time. Then at 8 Central Time is another show, followed by another one at 9 Central Time. Then after your late local news, it's another one at 11:35, 10:35 Central Time, except if it's preceded by a golf or tennis update, in which time it will start at either 11:50, 10:50 Central Time, or 12:05, 11:05 Central Time. After which, stay tuned for another show at either 12:37, 11:37 Central Time, 12:52, 11:52 Central Time, or 1:07, 12:07 Central Time, depending on whatever golf or tennis update was on 11:35, 10:35 Central Time. After that, stay tuned, whatever time it will air, for paid commercials, repeats of the 11 o'clock news, burned off syndication flops, bad movies, or a test pattern with an Indian head in the center of the screen. It's all right here at 8, 7 Central Time, unless something like the President of the United States of America has a televised press conference at 6 Pacific, 7 Mountain, 8 Central, and 9 Eastern Time. In that case, just add anywhere from 30 minutes to 2 hours to each of the times I have given you, depending on the time zone that you are in. And in this extreme case that this may occur, California will slip into the sea. Your trash pickup will be a day late. Polar bears and penguins will swap poles. The Great Pumpkin will rise. Paris Hilton will be sent back to prison. Cork will finally be out on DVD. Nothing will stay only in Las Vegas. Oprah Winfrey explodes. People die from watching Rachel Ray. An oil company will declare bankruptcy. Jesus brings the pork chops. Harry Houdini escapes death. Dogs and cats will be living together in harmony. People finally figure out the obscure pop culture references to Veronica Mars. David Hasselhoff does a paid cheeseburger commercial on the floor. Doctor Who plays first base on a baseball team. Joan Rivers' face finally falls off. People will finally care about David Beckham. Barry Bonds' muscles deflate. And Walmart raises all of their prices. And it's all tonight at whatever time it will air, only on SATV. Oh yeah, and David Tenney marries Jessica Alba. Yeah, right.
where we went wrong, and if we should try again, but I don't know where to start. I wonder if we tried again, would things be different this time, or would I break my bruised heart? So I'm falling slowly to another day. As those days add up, I feel so weak, lost and lonely. I gotta find another way before I find myself in too deep.
Wasn't that nice? I think, I know Charlie. Yeah. Right. Do what? Right. Exactly. All right. All right. I'll read. Charlie wants me to read this. I'll read it after the show, Charlie.
I've fallen and I can't get up.
Central EMT 4-3, we got a punt.
Roger on the punt, 4-3. Stabilize and transport.
Get the punt pillows and the butt Velcro. You're going to be okay.
Oh, boy. Well, it looks like it's just about that time. Hey, I don't know about you, but I sure did enjoy the show tonight. And it's all because of our most interesting guest, Jeff Rasley. Go to jeffrasley.com. That's Rasley. JeffreyRasley.com. I'll get it right. JeffreyRasley.com. Go there. Thank you, Jeff, for being with us tonight. Well, you know, there's a whole lot of love that comes to you from the Funny Farm. So no matter where you are, if it's nighttime, I trust that you will have a very, very good night. If it's already tomorrow where you're at, have a very, very good day. Just remember, we care about you. Drop me an email. Other people do. You do it. GeorgeCE@Comcast.net. GeorgeCE@Comcast.net. Let me know how you're doing. Got any questions? I'll answer them. If I don't, Charlie will, or Miss Ernestine will. Somebody around here will do it. So send us an email, GeorgeCE@Comcast.net. To all my friends, whether you be down the street, around the corner, across this great nation, or around the world. Until tomorrow night, same time, same station, 6:30 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Tune in for the George Espinlove Show that comes to you live from the Funny Farm in a place called our world. Until then, my friend, this is George Espinlove saying good night and God bless you.